Here we are once again. Man, I love getting excited about another interview, another episode of the 1% in Recovery podcast, Successful Gamblers and Alcoholics Stopping Addiction. Are you frustrated with the steps? Are you fearful, confused? Okay, stop. Now there is the 90-day 12-step road to freedom. That is a course and coaching. The course that I developed, the 12 steps explained. It takes you through the 12 steps, 3 questions to each step in 90 days. We do 1 step a week. We get you through it. So then you can really start on this road to recovery. It also includes 12 weeks of coaching. So you are there just like a trainer at a gym. You actually come out a new person, new man, new woman. Also, don't forget to rate and review the show. And we're also on Facebook group, the 12 Steps Explained Fellowship. There's a link in the show notes. With that, we are going to talk this morning with James Sinatra in New Jersey. How are you doing, James?
Good morning. How are you today, Hugo?
Doing well. Hey, let's just start off.
Great.
Tell the audience something you love.
I love you for inviting me onto your podcast to speak to your audience. Going a place where many won't dare.
I agree. Look, I always tell people, man, recovery is beautiful. Your EQ is your IQ. You know, people could actually embrace it, take away. I don't know. There is still stigma. There's still a lot of this, I can't tell people whether it's gambling, it's alcoholism, drugs, whatever. Look, we just got to own our story. And I think that's what you're going to try to do here today, too. Own your story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to talk. We got to talk. Like you posted something about courage the other day. Courage is a huge characteristic to have, I think. Self-esteem's another one, et cetera. There's so many things that kind of coexist with, all of these topics that we discuss.
Right. Well, let's get into question number 1. Now, you worked in the gambling industry. I mean, you were on TV promoting, talking about games and lines and totals and all this. Tell people maybe something either that they don't know what the gambling industry is doing, even though, they talk a lot about, that they're trying to be, good corporate citizens. But tell people about the gambling industry from the inside and what you saw.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts to that question. Understand something. New Jersey opened in, I believe, 2018, 2019. So I was kind of in the forefront of that. I kind of ran parallel with the opening. I got an opportunity to do some content creation for a regional sports network in New York City in the summer of 2019. Before football season, it was going to be geared toward the NFL season. So I'm 3+ years removed from working in that industry and covering sports betting at all. At the time, I was focused on the content creation, getting off the blocks quick, delivering my knowledge, analyzing the games, the spreads, the numbers, etc. So you don't really, you're not really too overly exposed to the backdrop of the industry and the business. You're not really hung up on all of that motion. I wasn't, at least. Where everything kind of, came to a transitional space with me as far as the industry went was really in the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, March 2020. I was completely out of the sports betting portion of media industry in 2020, right before the pandemic, but I was still doing some cable access work covering college basketball. But, when the pandemic started, we were just completely in the unknown. It was an unprecedented national health emergency. And, the gambling industry at that time, I just thought was unethical, did a horrible job of messaging. media and the operators decided they needed to cover Korean baseball lines, Russian ping pong lines. I was getting countless ads on my email for a casino. And I thought the messaging could have been a lot different at the time. Be safe, be disciplined. We'll be back in a few months when everything gets settled. Make sure your bills are paid, feed your family, pay your rent. People were getting furloughed, losing their jobs, just chaos everywhere. It was the unknown. And they just floored it even further. So I really that was kind of the transitional piece where I really started to understand what we were dealing with, full-fledged head through the wall on the marketing side.
Yeah, I know people now that have come into rooms, dealing with their gambling addiction. And they said because there was no American sports leagues, that they were betting on Ukrainian table tennis, and it was available 24/7. People were betting on women's Ugandan basketball. I mean, and there's one person was telling me about the ping pong saying, I don't even know if the games really did exist. You couldn't check them off. It's not like you go to ESPN and verify that the actual game took place. It could have been a total fabrication.
Yeah, I mean, as addicts and people looking for that rush and people looking for that high, we're willing to go to any extreme possible to get action. I mean, whether it's betting on Russian ping pong or the NFL or two ants racing down the kitchen counter for a sugar cube, we need that constant adrenaline. We need that push always. And, that time of isolation was really, really difficult on a lot of recovering people, problem gamblers, disordered gamblers, the isolated people that were just bored looking for something to do. And they were very, very, advantageous.
Yeah, that kind of leads us into question two. The sports leagues, the gambling sites, they all talk about that. But we have all these statements about responsible gambling. We're telling people set a limit on how much you can gamble, or that they're going to monitor the problem gamblers, the people that are betting more frequently. And we know, like in Vegas, they track player movement constantly. Every time you're going to do any type of gambling, they tell you swipe your card, they're going to track you. All these sites are tracking you. They know exactly who the problem gamblers are. What is your opinion about this whole responsible gambling? Because they're almost like wiping their hands clean. If someone becomes addicted, they end up going bankrupt, or they have other issues. What is your opinion about this whole responsible gambling, and what do you think should really be their statement?
I mean, first off, gamble and responsible is a contradiction in terms, okay, for starters. It's a loaded topic. I don't think it's I don't like to use cliches, but I don't think it's a one-size-fit-all based on age demographic, based on background. My advocacy, hopefully, in my attempt, is to try to connect with late teens to early 20s. I'm not so sure they know how to absorb that message. Responsible. I didn't know how. You may not know have known how. None of my friends knew how. And responsible is it's such a loaded term. Does that mean, responsible for some people could mean I only bet 3 times a year, but I'm betting way above, my financial means, or responsible could mean, I don't bet every day. So that's being responsible. So I don't know. I think it also coexists with the environment, the individual's self-esteem, their health background. I mean, look, let's do real talk for a second here. Okay. In-game live betting is insanely persistent. It's the antithesis to anything responsible. Okay. I mean, there's, it's a fast, high. It's one product. I don't like to use the language ban. I believe that product should be banned. I just think it keeps you engaged. It keeps you accessed. It keeps you chasing win. It keeps you chasing loss. It was an overwhelming product for myself. And I wasn't actually wagering, but I was on the app following the game and the numbers changing constantly and trying to leverage some sort of advantage. And I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And I'm a pretty disciplined guy. You know what I mean? I'm bet free since January 2020. I've been alcohol free 9 out of the last 12 years. Even before I stopped, even gambling once in a while, I was really toned everything down as far as how much I was gambling. The majority of my insanity when it came to gambling was in my 20s. So I think the amount of promotion, the amount of ad, 24/7, radio, TV, billboards, children have all the access, the algorithms on the phone. So, I mean, none of that is responsible as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And on top of that, you can't even turn on the game. The announcers, ESPN, the constant push of more and more that it gets into that a person, and of course, young people, their brains are still developing. They're going to be more impulsive. We know this based on all statistics. We know they're not going to totally understand consequences. So they're going, and then they're going to see it validated. The stamp of approval, not only from the state governments, from also all the major sports leagues. Now you have a number of stadiums where you can go in and place a bet. And so that is the type of insidious behavior that it can get in. And then before you know it, and it's too late to say that, well, you should have stopped. By then, it's almost like gambling has hijacked your brain.
Yeah, addiction doesn't work that way. It hijacked, it kidnaps your brain. You just don't turn it off and turn it on and turn it off and turn it on. It took me a long time to bury gambling. I mean, my 20s, I was out of control. Into my early 30s, some people ask me, well, how did you quit? I tell them, the only reason I quit gambling is because I quit drinking, and I believe it all does coexist, or some of it coexists. But yeah, and you brought up an interesting point about brain development. And again, I'm in the way minority on that. I don't even believe gambling, alcohol, recreational marijuana should be legal until 24, 25 when the brain is, fully developed. But, I'm never, I don't, I don't win a lot of these kind of debates and arguments, and that's okay. Those are just beliefs. They're all subjective.
Yeah, they are. Well, let's kind of go into question 3. I mean, tell people right now, you're out there, you're on social media, you're obviously within New Jersey, kind of pushing more awareness either about your story or about gambling in general. Tell people about what you're trying to do currently.
I'm just trying to find my way through and navigate my way through this space and try to get involved somehow, some way with the right people. I from a social media perspective, I had to get off of Twitter because it puts me, the proximity is just too close to too many people that I can aggressively attack on this topic. And, I know I need work on that. That's a weakness of mine. So, I'm off of Twitter. I'm off of Facebook. I stayed on Instagram. LinkedIn's been I've always had that account, but it's only been a few weeks since I've really been active. Met some great people, yourself and several others I've connected with and generated some conversation. So that's a good start for me. My mission statement moving forward is to somehow, some way get into teenagers, young adults, learn why they want to gamble, what they think they're going to, get from it long-term, short-term, offer alternative options. I was listening to Danny Trillero, who's, he's a great educator in this space. And he was on your podcast, I believe, a week or so ago, and he was talking about the money management aspect that some of these young guys are talking about. And my whole take on that is, if you're interested in money management, call me. I got a couple guys I know that are great financial advisors, and they'll get you going. And whatever money you're gambling, 50, 100, 200 a month, I don't know where the kids are getting the money, invest, and you'll have a little something at 40, 50 years old. You'll have a nest egg. Maybe you'll have $500,000 sitting there, and a lot of your friends, you're going to see how some of them end up, unfortunately, if they stay the course with this product. But, I was close in the summer of 2022. There's a place with a wellness department of school, and I reached out to them about this. They have some problems in the school already with some high school athletes. And we had a back and forth, and then I just got ghosted. And then I found out later there's definitely some political areas about getting in to talk to kids with, the board and families, et cetera, that I wasn't aware of. So I'm just thinking everything's free, open game. I sit there, you look on Twitter, and all these gambling analysts and influencers have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they could talk to our kids anytime about gambling 24/7, about, hard seltzers, about sex, about all these things, wide open, no problem. It's okay. Parents turn their back. I can't get in and talk to 20 high school athletes about prevention or the dangers of gambling or why they want to gamble or alternatives or my story, my experiences, et cetera.
Yeah, you did. You brought up episode 67 between me and Dan Trollero. Also, episode 66, where I just talk about my different ideas about sports betting. Yeah, there is so much out there because we can break down gambling in different, categories. But right now, the big buzzword is obviously sports betting because it's available in 32 states. We have the Super Bowl this weekend, so everyone's amped up about, I got to get some money on. Everyone wants to do prop betting. They want to do live betting. They want to bet on the game. And like you had said,
everybody's a follower, Everybody's a follower.
Right, and everyone wants to make
they got to fit in.
Right, they all speak like,
I understand, that was me. I get it.
But here's the thing.
I don't condone it, but I get it.
Right, but everyone thinks like, oh, no, the game's going to be more fun if I have some action on it. But I tell people you're more apt to lose. And then when you start losing, you're going to chase, and it's not going to be the chances of you winning money are slim. It's not 50-50. And unfortunately, that's, I think, really, one of the things that people really have to understand. People think gambling is a 50-50 chance. But the numbers are so slanted in the house's favor, in the bookmaker's favor, that they're going to win 65-70% of the bets. It's only the very few people that actually have a so-called winning record, and especially if you're going to throw in the juice or the vig, how much you actually have to win ahead, just even actually technically to be break even. 10-10 is not even. 10-10 means you've lost. You still lost the juice and the vig.
Without question. I mean, and to me, how I'm wired and how this is all in my DNA for so long. These leagues and teams, they're partnered with these sports books now. I mean, the money's all in front of them, so, I mean, I have a lot of fractured trust as far as the integrity as well. And I always did. And I'm in the minority of that too. But, that's all right. I live in the minority, so the money's all in front of them. So you hear these people with the complaints, oh, these refs are this, and the league wants this player in, and they want this city in, and all that. And these are things I was talking about 10, 15 years ago, and people thought, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Oh, he's negative. And now that's starting to gain more and more traction publicly. I saw some hashtags with NFL rigged and so on and so forth. I was talking about that stuff 10, 15 years ago, and people thought I was absolutely out of my mind. But when you bet enough and it starts playing with your mind, you really you start to overthink a lot of things. How did that guy miss 4 extra points? And you know what? He missed 4 extra points, and the total landed a half a point apart from what it was set at. It's harder to miss extra points, I would think, than it is to make them at some point in your career when you've kicked a million of them, and the whole ref thing and on and on and on. So again, these have kind of penetrated, these kind of things have just penetrated my mind for years and years and years. And now I see they're becoming more popular in conversation.
Well, not even the last thing that popped up about a month ago about a scorekeeper, how the stats of people at home arenas, and that's going to affect a prop bet. Is a certain person going to get over this many steals a game or rebounds a game? But if they're getting more favorable, there are so many. What people don't realize, there are so many different avenues. Just like, what was it, 10, 15 years ago when the NBA ref, Tim McCogney, got caught?
Yeah, Donahue.
Yeah.
Tim Donahue, yeah.
But the NFL goes back to the 1960s when Pete Rozelle banned Paul Hornung and Alex Karras for the suspicion. Yeah. There wasn't actually proof. It was suspicion of being around unfavorable people. And they were banned for a whole season. And now all of a sudden we've gone to the whole stand where we actually go to a stadium and actually bet. And actually even players. I heard now Devontae Adams, the wide receiver for the Raiders, is going to actually have a sponsorship with a gambling site. I don't know which one yet.
Yeah.
So it's gone like a complete 180. Yeah. And that's what people don't understand is, and it all comes down to the same thing over and over, no matter what it is. It all comes down to money. Everyone's got their hand out. And I keep saying is there's no different than any type. There's just a corporate prostitute. And they're just trying, and it's the same thing, universities, state governments, they can't collect as the money fast enough. And then they don't even realize their own part in it. That's the part that's scary. They don't even recognize what they're doing has an effect on the general population.
Yeah, and the media has their position as well. Josh Shaw, do you even know who that is? You don't know who it is? Okay, so he was a wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, I believe. Got suspended in 2019 for gambling on his own teams, I guess while he was injured. He had a 1-year suspension, and then there was another player, I forgot who it was, for the Carolina Panthers that's serving a suspension for gambling, but I don't know if it was sports or whatever, but he's currently on a suspension. And then there's been other things. Evander Kane was accused of gambling by his ex-wife. And these stories just get swept underneath the rug because they're a conflict of interest. Right. Nobody's talking about those stories on sports radio. They don't want you to know, there's a potential integrity issue or so on and so forth. And the media they always got to watch what they say because, sports books are blanketed over that whole industry side as well as big technology. So, they kind of harness to what they want to deliver and what they don't want to deliver. And everybody's getting paid. And, there's not a lot of, ethicals, morality, and integrity as of yet, I feel. So we'll see how it all kind of develops down the road. Everything changes every day, it seems like.
Yeah, it does. Well, I appreciate your time this morning as we delved into some of these topics around sports betting, gambling, the industry. Just always appreciate your time.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me.
Any last words?
Giving me an opportunity to speak. No, I just, if anybody's listening, watching, has kids or knows kids or struggling or whatever, I'd love for them to reach out. There's just a couple. I'm only on a couple of social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, but you could find me if there's anything I can do for anybody or talk with anybody from an educational perspective. I'd love that opportunity.
All right. Yeah. And we'll have James's information in the show notes, so you'll be able to contact him on Instagram or in LinkedIn. With that, we are going to conclude this episode of the 1% in Recovery.